Hello, hello, everyone. It is Tuesday. It is that time. It is time for the power session. I am happy to be here, excited to be able to share some things with you today. It has been quite a week since last time we met in our previous power session. A lot to download in life, a lot of experiences. I'll share a few of them with you as we get going here in just a moment. But as I was pondering what to talk about today, what to be able to share with you, there are a lot of things swirling around in my head, but it just kept coming back to choice. It came back to the things we choose. And there's some really interesting dynamics around choice and our idea of choice in this life. And I want to work through some of this. I want to process some of this out loud with you all. Just as I'm pondering it myself today. So there are some things that I want you to take away from in terms of being able to make better choices, choices that actually support what you want to create, so, choices that can help you get to where you want to go. Sanjeev across the pond, right on, welcome. Definitely noticing that. Oh, Becky, one of my favorites. Okay, I try not to be the guy that does a live and says hi to everybody as we're going through. But I'm also being cognizant of the fact that I had a couple of people ask me, hey, are those pre-recorded? Like, are you actually live? So yes, I'm actually live. It's actually 12:04 p.m. Mountain Time right now as I'm live on this. These are not pre-recorded. They're not pre-scripted. I usually have a couple of bullet points. I literally have that for today's power session, and that's about the extent of the notes that I'll take in preparing for something like this. Because I've been doing this for a long time, and there's a lot of things that I have access to in terms of what we can discuss and what we can share. And oftentimes I'm condensing that to be able to fit within this power session. But today I am choosing for this power session to be awesome, as I hope that you're choosing to have an awesome day. But it's very important that you understand the elements of choice. It's very important that you understand the dynamics, that it is not just a selection. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's dive in. Powerful music for a powerful session. Excited to be with you today. My name is Paul Blanchard, president of Habit Finder. I am here every week to be able to spend time with you talking about how you think, talking about the construct of your brain, your habits of thinking, and how those impact your performance, your procrastination, your relationships, your connection, and everything in between. Thank you, Amy. So an opportunity to be here today. You chose to be here. You chose to listen to this replay, or you chose to be here live as we're talking about this today. And that's exactly what I want to talk about. I want to talk about choosing in such a way that allows us to actually change, because that's what we're looking to create. We've likely become more aware of the things in our life that are not what we'd like them to be. We've become aware of the things that got us here, not necessarily the things that are going to get us there, get us where we want to go. We've become aware of the things that are going to need to be shifted or altered or improved or enhanced. And hopefully we have begun the process of starting to choose things differently, to be able to choose different options. But today I want to talk about choice in terms of what it actually entails for your change, for your development, for you to become better. It all started, I was listening to a talk, and this person was comparing life to a transaction with a cashier. And that it is only when we give more money, more value than what we had determined was necessary to acquire that particular item. So let's say we were acquiring a toothbrush for $2. And it is when we give more than $2, the predetermined value of that item, that we receive change. I found that to be a really powerful, really intriguing metaphor for what we want to be able to create, what we want to be able to do in life. And so that's what started all these wheels turning. That's what started thinking about our choice to be able to consider what we want to select and giving more value than is predetermined so that we can receive in return change in our lives. Because there are times that we choose to give exact change. There are even times that we try to get away with giving less than the predetermined value, hoping to receive more. But then what we don't receive is change. Now, I had an opportunity to go to an environment, to a space, to explore choice, to explore change, to explore oneself. As Nikki was just welcoming me back from the Dominican Republic, I decided about a month ago that I was going to go out to the Dominican Republic. I have a dear friend and coach, my personal coach, Tony Litster, who has been living out there since earlier this year. And has been going to the DR on and off for over a decade. And the opportunity to go down and spend time with him, to be able to have some very unique experiences, to be able to have some opportunity to reflect in a really incredible environment was amazing. The highlight, the pinnacle of this experience was going down to El Valle, which is on the opposite side of Samaná in the Dominican Republic on the north coast. And El Valle is completely undeveloped. Most people there are still living off the land, the jungle. You've got huts in different places and different things, but a very simple, very beautiful life. And we went over to El Valle to the beach there at about 10 o'clock at night. We were trying to get there before the sunset, but traveling from Santo Domingo took longer than expected. And so we got over there and it was dark. There were stars out, some clouds moving, and we decided to grab the paddle boards, me and Tony, and to paddle out past these rocks that the waves were crashing on to this secluded beach that was just up the coast that you could only get there by paddleboarding. It's totally enclosed by cliffs on all sides, very steep hills and jungle that is totally undeveloped, totally untouched, including this beach. And we spent several hours there together talking and reflecting and sharing. Then we paddleboarded back so his wife could pick us up about 2 a.m. And his wife came to pick us up, and I decided I was going to go back. I told Tony I felt very drawn to stay in that space until sunrise, to be able to just spend some time with myself. So I got back on the paddleboard and went back out around the rocks and went back to that beach. And I had a sheet, a microfiber towel, 3 Ziploc bags of fresh fruit, and a big bottle of water. And that was it. And my swimsuit, and a thin shirt that didn't even last the night. And that was it. And spent the rest of the night there. And the light started to come out around 6 a.m. or so. And then was completely, the sunrise and lighting everything up was in its full majesty by about 8 o'clock. And it was an incredible experience. Shared a little bit on Instagram over the weekend about some of the self-discovery, the challenges of being in that kind of space. It was both beautiful and difficult and enlightening and euphoric and troubled and everything. It was a really, really powerful experience. And it was cool. It was really cool to be able to say, yeah, I went and paddleboarded to some secluded, isolated, one of the most undeveloped, isolated, and secluded beaches in the world, and just spent the entire night by myself, which was really cool. And I asked for it. I wanted the experience, and it wasn't all pleasant. It wasn't all pleasant spending that much time with yourself. It's inevitable that you're going to find some spaces to go in your own mind that have not been well explored and uncover some things that you may not be ready to see. But I'm incredibly grateful for the experience. Kind of set the tone for the rest of the weekend, set the tone for how I wanted to come back, what I wanted to allow that experience to mean. Because it's not the experience that creates the meaning. It's how we choose to use and recall and interpret the experience that matters. The experience was amazing. But there is exponentially greater value in how I choose to recall that, how I choose to interpret that experience, how I choose to make it matter from here on out. And I could feel myself both trying to make it matter more than it needed to, as well as trying to talk myself out of whether it even mattered at all. And really interesting dynamic to hear that conversation. We talk a lot about in Habit Finder about being able to hear your own thoughts, being able to think for yourself, which is far easier or far more difficult than people would imagine. Jordan Peterson said most people can't think for themselves because they're not willing to allow more than one conversation, more than one point of view to be active up here. Oftentimes people think that thinking is like preaching or like lecturing, that you should be the only voice in your head and the one that's totally in control. And that's not thinking at all. Man, when I spent the night at that beach by myself, there were a lot of voices having conversations up here that I had to listen in on. Some conversations that I didn't enjoy so much, some conversations that were so incredibly enlightening. And as I started to think about that opportunity, that is where our development begins. So when we're talking about choosing to change, choosing to improve, I hope that one of the first choices you make is to more actively listen to your own mind. It's critical that to do so, you are willing to suspend judgment. This is not, and I don't mean like judgment about yourself, like you're crazy. How can you have more than one voice in your head? You know, well, those of you who just thought to yourself, what is he talking about? Well, that's one of the voices. Okay. And there's several others that we want to be able to listen in on and be able to have that conversation. But I hope that you choose to be able to listen to it. And suspending the judgment isn't what those thoughts mean about you as much as what you think about those thoughts. Are they negative? Are they positive? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they righteous? Are they evil? Suspend all that. And just be willing to look at them and hear them and feel them. And understand that similar to the experience I had, it is how we choose to interpret them from there. How we choose to recall them. What ammunition we use them for in stories and excuses and justifications and rationalizations we make in our life. That's what determines whether they're good or bad or positive or negative. And that's very difficult for people to do. So if you're willing to challenge that, you're willing to choose to actually listen to the conversations going on in your head, the 50 to 80,000 conscious thoughts a day that you can use as clues to learn more about the 1 to 2 million unconscious thoughts that we have. And then the tools that we've got, like the Habit Finder assessment, to be able to really measure the aggregate patterns of those, to make sure that as you're applying principles that you're learning from us or from anyone else, and there are many great sources out there for great principles to grow, that you're doing so within the construct of how your brain works and how your thoughts are constructed. So that's a little bit about my trip to the DR, just a little touch on that and kind of where the space I've been in for the last week, getting back yesterday morning. And again, coming back to this morning, wanting to talk about the choices that we make. I want to go back to that analogy of it is when we give more value than was predetermined, whether by ourselves or collectively, that we receive change. $2 toothbrush, I give a $5 bill, I get change. And it got me thinking about a biblical parable that many people know, that to go the extra mile, okay, which comes from an incredible principle that really ties in as we talk about choice and how important it is to be making conscious choices, to choose your life rather than just get through your life or tolerate your life, which is what many of us are doing. Many of us, and I hope you hear this. I don't want to offend a soul, but that's up to you. Many of us are seeking circumstance improvement and tolerating our lives rather than personal improvement and living our lives. which requires choice. And choice is far more difficult than just a selection. It's not like walking through the grocery store of, should I choose these chips or choose these chips? Should I choose this breakfast cereal or choose this breakfast cereal? It's far more deep and integrated than that. It's not just a conscious selection. We have conscious choices, and those are usually the best choices. But then many of us make choices unconsciously because of a number of reasons. And those are the choices I want to shed some light on today. And I want to do so with that parable, with that lesson of going the extra mile. It comes from ancient Rome. Okay, it comes from when soldiers of Rome would travel. They would have to carry all their gear with them. And so a law was passed because these were soldiers. They were relied upon to defend the state, to be able to maintain the power of the empire. And so a law was passed that a Roman soldier could ask anyone of a certain status or below to carry their gear for them for a mile. And if they refused, it was punishable by death. Meaning I could come in with my shield and my armor and probably, over 100 pounds of gear for long journeys and come to a village and see someone. And regardless of what they were doing, depending on their status, I could say, carry this. And if they don't, I could kill them justifiably. And so we learn from this the power of going the extra mile. See, it wasn't that the extra mile came from choosing to do something and then choosing to do more of it. No, it was being compelled to do something and then choosing to do what we were compelled to do, but this time it would be our choice, because that impact neurologically, that impact emotionally, that impact physiologically would pay huge dividends. So if a Roman soldier was to say, carry my gear for a mile, do so, but then carry it for an extra mile, because that one is yours. You had to carry it the mile. You were compelled by death to carry that, to go through those challenges. Toleration was likely necessary. Compensating was likely necessary to just get through. Not being able to wait until you could just set it down and walk away without being killed was likely the primary focus of that particular journey, of that first mile. But then to get to the end of that first mile and to know that death is no longer on the line and to choose to go an extra mile, that mile is the personal development. That mile is the change. That mile is the choice. You could have chosen to not go the mile, but you would have been killed. Your life would have been over. So that's a pretty simple choice to make. But when the choice comes to a conscious level, when it comes to consideration, when it comes to options, when it comes to being able to do it because you chose it, even you wanted it, and you get to have it, that is the extra mile. That is where success is created in life. So what don't you think about in your life is, what are the things that you think you've been choosing to do, but they've been punishable by death? It could be a career that you're working. It could be a business that you're trying to build. It could be a relationship you're trying to get through. It could be chores that you have to get done. It could be service that you give in the community. It could be all kinds of things, but it is primarily driven because you have to do it because the consequences are just unacceptable. You cannot choose death over carrying the gear. You cannot not do that because you won't be able to feed your family. You can't not do that because of how you'll be looked at in the community. You can't not do. These are the kinds of choices I want you to examine in your life. And I want you to consider if there's a mile there for you. Because some of us, what we run the risk of doing is tolerating these things until we can get to a day where we no longer have to do them. And that sets an unsustainable precedent in our lives. That is teaching the brain that anything it has to do that is difficult, it is only doing so that it doesn't have to do it anymore, rather than learning how to take things that are difficult and make them feel easier through ability and discipline and habits. Those things are created by what we become, not what we do. The first mile is what you have to do. The second mile is where you become, because it's yours. You chose it, with the scales even being tipped the other way. It wasn't hard to choose to carry the gear when the other option was death. Just as it would be really easy to choose to not go the extra mile when the consequence is just, that's it. You're done. The Roman soldier cannot require any more of you. So what are the things in your life that you are tolerating that you could add an extra mile to, and they could be your salvation? They could be what gets you to the next level because you leaned into the toleration and you decided to choose it. Now, it didn't say choose to go an extra 100 miles, just matching it. Just match what you were just tolerating, what you were just surviving, what you were just trying to get through, to be able to make a conscious choice. So you can start to see the difference in your life between the conscious choices you make and the unconscious choices you make that we fail to become totally accountable for because we didn't feel like we made that choice. I was too tired. Well, what choices did you make that got you too tired? I couldn't afford it. What choices did you make or not make that made it so you couldn't afford it? We can follow the lineage of these obstacles, of this fatigue, of the stress, of the overwhelm, of the depression, the anxiety. We can follow the lineage, and it's always going to come down to choices. Just most of the choices that led to those disruptions, those things we were convinced were holding us back, were unconscious choices because we had to, because it was punishable by death. So we shut off who we are, and we just got through it. We shut off who we are, our character, to just get through it. And there are times in your life where that is the best choice. I'm not asking you to choose death by the Roman soldier. There are times that toleration, grit, pure, desperate deprivation is required. But that's not growth. That's survival. And when we get to the other end of that survival, are we willing to choose consciously an extra mile? The choice, as we break down the meaning of the word choose, is to distinguish, to discern, to recognize, and to perceive. To choose something is to distinguish, to discern it, to recognize it, and to perceive it. That requires clarity and consciousness. But many of us have become victim to choices that we cannot distinguish, we cannot discern, we cannot recognize, and we cannot perceive, because too many of our choices were to survive. Too many of our choices were for the Roman soldier's mile, not for our mile in addition to. And we create this cat and mouse game of trying to get to a place in life where the Roman soldier will never be able to ask us to carry his gear. And we end up playing a life of escape, a life of avoidance. And we never sometimes get the opportunity to reclaim our conscious choice. And our life, as we have unconsciously dictated, begins to choose for us. But we chose to set up that arrangement. So even the unconscious choices were, in fact, our choice. If you're looking to disrupt this, if you're looking to change this, start finding what you're tolerating and find a way to match it by choosing it, wanting it, getting it for you. Because when we do that, we can be present to it. And it is only in becoming more present to our lives, it is only in actually living our lives that we can ever create the one we actually want and be able to distinguish, discern, and recognize and perceive that we've actually created it. If we're not making enough conscious choices to distinguish, discern, recognize, and perceive, then we won't have those faculties available to actually be fulfilled by it. And it will never be enough. If you continue to just want life to be easier, continue to just try and escape and avoid, you will continue to dull and blunt your ability to distinguish, discern, recognize, and perceive. And we'll miss the opportunity to be actually be able to receive what we deserve. We'll lose the opportunity to increase our construct of worthiness so that we can actually support the actions and the disciplines and the habits to be able to become the person that what we want to have becomes a natural outcome. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you 3 things that I believe put us in the prime position to be able to choose consciously. Because you are choosing every day, all day, tens of thousands of times. I saw the other day that the average person makes 35,000 decisions a day. 35,000 decisions a day. How many of those could you distinguish, discern, recognize, and perceive? If you can become a little bit more conscious of just a few more, you can create more. You can experience more. You can become more and actually enjoy the process. These are 3 things, 3 ingredients in your life that have got to be there to make it a fair fight, to make it a fair opportunity for you to make more conscious choices rather than ones that are compelled by death. Number 1, focus. What are you doing every day to better focus? And what time of day are you using to be able to find this? For me, the mornings are the best. And I know for countless others who have created the lives that they wanted and been worthy of the lives they created. Not worthy by some other person's evaluation. It is only in your own evaluation that you can find fulfillment and worthiness. And making this conscious choice. What are you doing to create focus? But that's the first one. We find focus. Then we find relaxation. Wait a second. That doesn't sound right. We should find focus and then go. Find focus and attack. No. What we will do is find focus and then relax. Relaxation allows us to become more in touch with our senses. Relaxation allows for our neurological processes to be optimized, our physiological processes to be optimized. The more tense you are, the less available your fibers and your neurology and your nervous system is available to be fluid and evolutionary and to be able to process. So first, find a focus, find a vision, find a dream, find something that draws your focus to being present to right now, every day, and then find a way to relax, to breathe, to walk, to read. We relax after we focus. And then finally, we decelerate. We slow down. Now we're ready to execute. If you talk to anyone who is at a master level of long-range sniper shooting or martial arts or a number of other very physically demanding disciplines, focus is required. Relaxation is essential. And deceleration is efficient. So find your focus, then relax into it. So many of us find a focus and burn the ships and charge, only to exert tremendous casualties in the battle in our lives. only to create unnecessary casualties, only to burn the ships while our greatest supplies and gifts are still on them because we just got to go. No, that intensity is not sustainable. We want to find focus, relax, then slow everything down. It is in this state that we can better distinguish, discern, recognize, and perceive our lives, and to be able to actually make conscious choices. See, we're not slowing down for the sake of slowing down. We're not slowing down so that it takes longer. Those of you who have surrendered to these principles have likely found that this actually speeds life up, speeds your development up, because you spend less of your life doing things that you were compelled to by death. You spend too much of your life carrying the gear for a mile and then running away to hope to never get asked to carry the gear again, rather than choosing to go the extra mile in your life where personal development actually occurs, where honing the skill and the stamina and the discipline of distinguishing, discerning, recognizing, and perceiving in life can actually be created. So the next time you find yourself in a state of toleration, in a state of deprivation, feeling the weight of life, I hope that in that moment you become present to where you are. Realize how much your brain is wanting you to try and live in a reality that doesn't exist, called the future. It knows how valuable the future is, how incredible the vision is, but it wants you to live there, but you can't. You can only live right here with focus and relax, to quit being in such a hurry to get to a place that doesn't exist at the sacrifice of living where you really are. So relax and then decelerate. Slow down. Slowing down is like waking up early. There's a different early for everybody. There's a different slow down for everyone. Just slow down enough that you can distinguish what's important in your life and who is important in your life, that you can discern your priorities and your boundaries, that you can recognize the steps, the baby steps you can take to get there, and you can perceive the impact that it's having on you and the world. That conscious choice is a choice for success. I hope that you get the opportunity to grab onto some part of this. I realize we went a little deep today. I had some pretty deep experiences over the last week, so it's kind of expected. But if you take nothing more from this, but just wanting to understand that extra mile is yours, so find the opportunities in your life where you were compelled to do something, have to do something, and you chose to match it, to do just a little bit more of it for you, and then to focus, which just means to be present. You don't need to focus on details. Just be present, relax, decelerate, and then execute. And you'll watch your life start to materialize in the way that you didn't even realize was possible. And it'll no longer be about putting your head down, zoning out from the present to hopefully put your head back up, having made enough sacrifices, done enough work compelled to by death, to be able to create the life you always wanted. And even if you somehow could, you wouldn't have the distinguishing, discerning, recognizing perception to even be able to enjoy it. So please focus, become present, relax, less intensity, and decelerate, slow down, to be able to see your priorities, to see people, connect with them and add value to them and create your dreams. Thanks everybody for listening. I hope today was helpful. I wish you all the best. If you need any assistance in being able to do these things and understand what's holding you back at its deepest point, at its highest level in your mind, Habit Finder stands ready and able to help you make that journey. At the very least, go to habitfinder.com and measure the circus that is our mind, so we can help you start to navigate that, to be more present, to be more relaxed, to slow down so that you can speed up the process of realizing your dreams and the achievement of others around you. Thank you. Have an incredible day. We'll see you next week.